I'm going to show you how to make the perfect French omelet that if you follow these instructions, you'll be able to replicate every single time. Let's get started. Now, a classic French omelet is very simple. It's just butter, eggs, and milk. Now, we're going to be adding a little bit of shallot, some mushroom, and either Gruyere or Swiss cheese. In this case, we're going to be using Swiss cheese. So we're going to take that shallot, separate if you have multiple. Now we're going to take this, we're going to cut it in half. Now if you notice inside, I always like to remove that little bit of core. The center here is very gassy, it's very pungent. I don't like to use this part. I just want to keep these sweeter layers that you see displayed here. Now I like to use the back of the knife. The reason I like to use the back of the knife, the heel of the knife here, is because you tend to use it less. So it's going to be a little bit sharper, and if it's closer to your hand, that means you have more control. Now I'm going to take it, I'm just going to cross cut. Now you have a nicely, finely chopped onion. Moving over to our mushrooms. I have two different ones here. I have ones with a longer stem, one with a shorter stem. Now the ones with a shorter stem, I'm going to use sort of as a garnish. Now for these, when you make an omelet, you want to make sure each component within the omelet that you add to it, outside that classic French just egg omelet, you're going to want to make sure it's not too big. Because if the garnish is too big, when you go to flip it, it's going to be very difficult for you. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to cut them in half one way. When I was a chef, or a young chef, a cook, I used to work on the hotline, and we used to do this for brunch. And we offered the classic French omelet, because I grew up in French restaurants. And we used to be able to do 200-300 of these in any given day. If you really understood the process of how to cook the eggs, then it was a pretty simple service. But if you didn't, well, then the service might be a little difficult for you. Now these are the garnish ones here. I'm just gonna cut these down the middle, and I wanna make those really nice cuts, because what we're gonna do afterward is just sear them. Now, if you are curious on how to make a really good omelet, I would suggest you don't fast forward through the video. Each step is very crucial. So we have our two different types of mushrooms, the one that we're gonna put inside the omelet, and then we have the ones for the garnish that's gonna go right on top. So now we're gonna start cooking the garnish. We're gonna start by having a pan over medium heat. This is avocado oil. I'm gonna pour this inside. You can tell the pan's hot because the oil is going to appear to be thinner once it enters the pan. But this oil appears to be good. Now we're going to add our mushrooms. And really, as soon as those mushrooms hit, you want them to already start cooking. They're going to release some of their water, so I always like to salt my mushrooms toward the end of the process, because if you salt them right in the beginning, you're not going to develop the color. The reason you're not going to develop the color is because you're taking the moisture out of the mushroom, and it's essentially braising in its own mushroom liquid. And you can already see these mushrooms are really nicely starting to get that nice golden brown color that we're all familiar with. And since those mushrooms are 50% of the way done, now I'm going to take my bit of shallot. Now these shallots are going to become nice and sweet as they cook and they remove their own water. You bring out the sugar from your shallot, you have a nicely seared mushroom, and now we're going to finish it with a touch of garlic. Now you have to be careful with the garlic, because the garlic has a tendency to burn very quickly. Finish it off with just a little bit of a nice French salt. We're going to remove this and reserve nicely caramelized, all your ingredients, tons of flavor packed in here. So now at this point, we have these garnish mushrooms. These mushrooms are going to be the presentation for the top of the omelet. Kind of mix this oil around, following the same principle. Once that starts to get really thin and almost look watery, you know that oil is heating up very well. And really all we're trying to do with the garnish mushroom is to sear them to really showcase that golden brown color. Now I would suggest also, some parts of your pan are going to be higher than others. So I would follow where the oil is. I would put my garnish mushrooms right in those little oil spats, like so. And we're coming along pretty nicely here. And when we do rest these mushrooms, we're actually going to want to rest them the colored side or the cut side facing upward, because you don't want that nice golden brown color to become soggy again. And they'll actually kind of begin to lose some of that nice color. And we're just going to remove them as so. And there you have nicely seared little garnishing mushrooms. Now I'm going to take my beautifully tempered eggs. I'm going to take my milk, which is about 2 ounces for the 4 eggs. Pour that inside, and we're going to get our whisk on. When you add the additional moisture to the egg, it kind of makes it more forgiving. For one, the milk is just going to add some creaminess to it. But that additional moisture is going to stop it really from burning as you're cooking, and it gives you a little bit more time. Just want to make sure those are really fully and completely mixed without too many air bubbles, because the air bubbles will kind of make uneven cooking eventually. So now we got our pan at medium. It's 1 tablespoon of butter, 1 teaspoon of oil. The oil is gonna protect the butter from burning too quickly. We're gonna add that in. So really what we're trying to do is, we're starting at a higher heat, and then we're gonna work the heat down, because we want those eggs to scramble nicely, and we don't want too much color on the outside of the omelet. So now we're gonna add our eggs. Just kind of pulling from the sides. They're slowly starting to coagulate, which is exactly where we want them. And you do not want to rush the scrambling process, because a well-scrambled egg is actually done quite slowly. So in restaurants, usually when you have a younger cook that you're trying to train, especially with eggs, because eggs is one of the hardest things you can really teach a cook how to do, when they're not very good yet, what happens is they have the heat too hot. The bottom starts to brown. To avoid the browning, the further browning of the bottom, they put it in this thing we call a salamander, which is a real high heat source. So the top layer of the eggs will start to cook, but that's really not the best way you want to do this. So this right here is like a French soft scramble. The French would usually pull the eggs right about now for their scrambled eggs, because this is the max creaminess you're going to get, is right about here. So now what I'm going to do though, if we want to have an omelet, is I'm going to kind of spread those eggs to kind of cover all those little crevices. And now we're going to develop the skin at the bottom. And then at this point is when we're going to start seasoning our eggs, because I haven't seasoned the eggs at all yet. I always like to do it at the end. What I'm trying to do is avoid the salt from extracting too much of the moisture from the actual egg while it's really cooking and coagulating. So now I'm going to add my salt and pepper. I'm going to add my Swiss cheese, mixture of mushrooms and shallot. Those eggs are fully set. We've developed the skin at the bottom to kind of keep it durable as we do our folding. In classic French fashion, we're going to do a 3-fold, like so. You see how the skin has developed? There's no real color, it's beautiful. What's going to happen now too is you can start to see the cheese already melting. That cheese is really going to melt when it's fully encased in the egg. I'm going to flip it this way. We're going to flip it onto our plate. So now we're taking just a little knob of butter and we're just going to brush it over for a bit of decoration. Also a nice little indicator that it is a mushroom omelet. Couple pieces of parsley for garnish. And there you have it. This omelet will wow anybody that you put it in front of. For the best part, let's give it a try. You have a nice delicate skin, you have very creamy eggs, you have stringy cheese. This is spot on. Let us know what you think in the comments below.